1.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Sports Commute. As you know, my name is Matt alongside Dan. And we have a special guest today, Grala.
Thanks for having me on tonight, guys.
Of course.
Happy to have you here.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a couple people ask some questions, and we're going to ask you those questions, as well as we've got some questions of our own.
Of course.
I'll let you start.
What do you feel about the next-gen cars?
Well, that's a good question. I haven't, of course, gotten to drive one yet, but they look pretty cool. I've seen it at the shop at RCR plenty of times, and I think they're going to look good on the racetrack. And the drivers I've talked to who have driven them say that they like it a lot, and I like the direction NASCAR is going with it. So we'll see. It's definitely a big cost to the teams initially, because of course every team has all these cars and all these parts for what we currently race. They'll have to get rid of all of those and buy all new stuff for the next gen cars. So even though in the long run the next gen cars are supposed to save the teams a lot of budget, initially it's quite a big investment up front. So I think that's going to change probably the way the next year or two in the sport looks. I know already this year teams are really putting a premium on how much sponsorship or money a driver can bring to them, because they're having to invest in the next gen car. But in the long run, it's going to save the teams money, and I do think it's going to bring the competition a little bit closer together, make those little guys who are mid-pack, who maybe don't have the same budget the top teams do. I think it'll put them in the same race with those guys much more, and when they hit their setup right on that weekend, I think that they should be able to be a lot more in contention. So it'll be a great thing for the series.
Definitely.
All right. So when we last talked, you were looking for a ride. Have you found one yet?
I'm hoping. I'm trying to. I don't have anything yet, but I've definitely got some stuff in the works that I have my fingers crossed about. So hopefully something will work out where you can see me in a race car, hopefully even more next year than you have the last couple of years. So that's my goal.
What's your favorite track?
There's so many good ones. I'd say for an oval, my favorite track is probably Dover or Phoenix. Those are two really cool places. I just love a unique track, and I feel like those two places are definitely a little bit wacky, a little bit different, so I find that to be fun. But as you guys probably know, I do love my road courses, and Canadian Tire Motorsports Park is a good one. I actually like Virginia International Raceway. It's not on the schedule for any of the national series. It used to be on the K&N schedule back in the day when I ran it, but that's another personal favorite of mine. I'd love to see a series go there someday.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So this one's from our driver, actually, Travis Butt. How did you get so quick, or how did you adapt to Daytona so quickly in a Cup car, and how much practice did you need?
I would have loved some practice, but at the same time, I think the fact that there wasn't any practice and that the series had never raced there before probably helped me, because when you think about it, let's say the same circumstance happened, but it was a week later at Dover. Well, you look at the Cup field, and you've got the Harvicks and the Hamlins and the Jimmy Johnsons, who they have more wins at Dover than I've ever made starts at Dover in any kind of car before. So they know the place. They've been there for 10 years, 15 years. You take a place like the Daytona Road Course, and I think that helped me, because nobody had ever driven a Cup car there before. We all went in to the race on an even playing field. Now, of course, I'm still at a disadvantage, because those guys at least drive Cup cars every weekend, so they're used to that part of it, which I didn't know the car. But at least they didn't have all these years of experience at that track and a thick notebook telling them what happens when they do this, or when they do this, change this on the car. So I think that was a good view at how I could do in the Cup field when things are sort of leveled back out a little bit, and I think that showed well to other teams. And to me personally, I think it's a little bit of foreshadowing for the next gen car, because that's going to be something that the whole field is going to tackle at the same time. They're going to have to learn it. When they race it for the first time, nobody will have ever raced in a next gen car. So that's something that I've kind of had in the back of my mind is the number one focus for me is to try to find myself in a relatively competitive Cup car if I can by 2022 because I truly think that when things are leveled out that I've got a really good shot to excel in the series.
Definitely. Fair enough. What's your favorite memory from this year?
Well, I mean, I think that race for sure in the 3 car, that's hard to beat. I mean, you guys might know, but I actually grew up racing as the number 3 car for years since I was 9 years old in Bandoleros, legend cars, late models. So the 3 has always been special to me. But it was actually because my dad, when he used to race in sports cars, he was number 3. So for me, it was more about my dad and not necessarily because of Dale Earnhardt and what he did with the number 3 on the side of his car. But for that to kind of come together for me, of course, since I was little, I've been dreaming of being a NASCAR driver. That's why I do what I do. So the Cup Series was always my goal. So if you had told me 10 years ago that I'd be making my first Cup start in the number 3, I would have thought that was just the craziest thing anyone's ever said. So that was a special weekend for me personally. Obviously, the result was way better than expected, so that part of it was cool too from the actual professional side. But really, just personally for me, that was a big weekend, and I don't care, how long or short my career is or turns out to be. There's no way that I'll probably ever beat the specialness of that weekend for me personally.
So I want to take you back a couple years just to kind of figure out what your reaction was. Canadian Tire, you've got the lead, and I can't remember who it is, but they come up behind you. You two are battling for the lead, and they end up spinning you out with about 2 laps to go. Do you remember that at all? I'm sure you probably do.
I do remember that. It was Austin Cindric on the very last lap of the Motorsport race in trucks. Turn 5A. I'll never forget that. So I haven't necessarily gotten him back for that yet. I haven't found myself in the same position again, but I have a feeling that he and I someday will find each other racing, or we'll find ourselves racing each other for the win on a road course in something. Xfinity car, Cup car. I'm sure it'll happen again, and of course it's racing. You got to race the other drivers like they race you. So it might just have to happen one day in the future.
Yeah.
All right.
So you said you liked the one road course, the Richmond course. What other tracks would you like to see if you could pick your own schedule?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, NASCAR has done a phenomenal job this year. I feel like they've done a lot of the changes that I personally would have dreamed up myself. I mean, I'm not a dirt guy. I honestly, literally no dirt experience. But doing that Eldora truck race a couple years ago was so much fun. So the fact that they put that on the Cup schedule, I think is going to be really cool to watch. It'd be great to be in. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity. But just in general, I think it's going to be a great event. But, of course, you guys know I love road courses, and they added a lot of them. They got 7 now, up from 3. And that's a huge change. And I said VIR, I'd love to see that on the schedule. I'd love to see Canadian Tire on the Cup schedule someday. I think it's an awesome facility up there, great racetrack. And, I mean, I think everyone who's watched those races knows it always is an exciting finish. In 2017, maybe a little too exciting of a finish for me, but it always puts on a great last lap. So I think that'd be a cool place to see the Cup cars go someday.
Sure enough.
All right. So I wanted to ask what a normal week looks like for you, especially during this past season.
Well, that's a good question, actually, because a lot of people don't know necessarily what I do because they only see me on the track, 5, 6, 7 times a year the last couple of years being part-time. But every week for me, I work out and train to be in the race car Monday through Thursday each week. And when I'm not actually physically training, I'm writing emails and making phone calls, trying to talk to different companies, get to know people that could be potential sponsors in the future. There's not a whole lot of drivers who truly do that themselves personally. But over the past couple of years, I've been the only one working on it myself. So I may drive part-time, but I would call myself a full-time race car driver because I really do the whole deal from start to finish full-time myself. And racing part-time, it gives me a little extra time actually to try to work on those sponsorship relationships. So it's helped me be able to do a few races each year, and definitely getting to do that cup race this year helped put my name on the map a little bit more. It definitely generated more interest in sponsorship conversations. It's still been a roller coaster. It hasn't been smooth sailing by any stretch, but I'm definitely hopeful for the next year or two. I think, I hope the good things are on the horizon, and we'll see what I can do here and see if I can get my career started in a full-time capacity soon.
Definitely. All right. What got you into racing when you were younger?
Well, I got in really young. I was 4 years old when I did my first race in a go-kart, actually. And really because my dad, he used to race, so I was around it. I knew about it. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, so you wouldn't think that being a race car driver is anything that kids really think about around Boston. It's usually baseball, football, basketball, but we've got a lot of big teams up in the area. So racing is not on too many people's radars, but of course it was on mine because of my dad. So I tried every sport, you name it, and I did it. But racing just stood out to me in a big way as far as my passion and what I was best at. So I stuck with that, and by the time I think I mentioned I was about nine-ish years old, that I really got serious about racing and decided, like, okay, this is what I really want to try to make my future. This is my dream, and I'm going to give it all I've got. So I spent a lot of years in school up in Massachusetts, missing Fridays and flying out to racetracks and racing as much as I could, anywhere that I could, all the way until I graduated a few years ago, and that was the year I raced in the truck series. So racing's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember.
Alright, so what other sports, like, do you like watch any other sports, like on TV or anything?
I do. I call myself more of a casual fan of other sports, more so than an avid fan. I don't really follow any other sport really closely. I will say I almost every year play fantasy football, and I think I win every championship that I'm in because everyone I play against, they get personal feelings about the players, and I think this guy will do the best, or I gotta have this guy on my team. I don't know much about them or about the sport itself. Honestly, I look at the numbers on the app, and it works. They win every time. So I'd say fantasy football is really my main gig as far as sports outside of racing.
Well, fair enough.
So NASCAR Heat 2. You're in NASCAR Heat 2. How does it feel to be in a video game that's nationally played? I think
that is cool, and I mean that's another thing. Obviously, as a little kid, like a lot of drivers do, I played all those games and absolutely loved like NASCAR 2011, NASCAR Inside Line. I used to play those all the time growing up, and so for me personally, that little kid always dreamed of someday making it to NASCAR and being in a video game. So it's definitely cool to have that be a reality now, and get to race against some of those NASCAR Heat Pro League guys whenever they do some special events. Actually, I just did one recently for NASCAR Heat, so those are a lot of fun guys over there, and the games have definitely gotten better over the years. I think this most recent NASCAR Heat is way better than the others, and I've talked to some of the guys over there. I guess there's some big things on the horizon for the next game for it, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what that's all about next year.
All right. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the 2021 schedule? You already said you like the road course. What else do you think they could have done better, or you like the most?
Well, I like the idea of Nashville. That's a track that I've never been to in anything. I know it used to be on some of the schedules a few years back, but that was before I was on the scene here. So that's one that I'm looking forward to maybe getting to race at. Again, I don't know what I'll be driving or if I'll be driving, but if I get the chance to do that race, I'll be looking forward to it because I just like trying new tracks, new places. I do like that there are fewer tracks next year that we'll go to twice. I like variety. I like trying different stuff. So the few years back, the schedule was primarily races that we would go to twice. Almost every track you would go to twice. Now they're starting to spread the love a little bit more and start going everywhere once so we can get to some new places. I think that's really cool. I guess the other schedule change I'm looking forward to is the trucks are now going to be going to Knoxville, I think, on the dirt, which is a different track, of course, than Eldora. And just like paved tracks, every dirt track is totally different. So that's going to be a completely different animal for those guys. So I'm thrilled to get to watch that on TV.
Definitely.
So on the weekends that you don't race, you're sitting as a backup driver for the RCR cars. What does that look like for you? You still travel with the team, I'm assuming, to the racetrack?
Early in the year, they actually had AJ Allmendinger traveling to the track for them as their backup driver for the Cup guys. But that one weekend, it was kind of the perfect storm for me to end up being the driver of the car because that was the first weekend in history of NASCAR that they had a rule saying you could only race in one of the series races that weekend. This is because they didn't want Cup guys going and doing the ARCA race, the truck race, and the Xfinity race just to get ready for the Cup race and then getting such a big advantage over the other Cup drivers who had never done that track. So they said, look, you can only be on one entry list this weekend. Pick your series. So AJ Allmendinger, of course, was entered in the Xfinity race. He does all the road courses with Colleague. So that made him ineligible to drive the Cup car on Sunday, no matter what happened. And so that's kind of where I came into play because I wasn't racing that weekend, but RCR knew that I had some road course experience. I've done well in their Xfinity cars on road courses. So that's kind of how I got to be in that position. And then my performance in that race, I took care of the car. I, of course, didn't wreck it and got a good finish. So that put me in a position a little bit later in the year that when Ty Dillon was expecting his baby to be born towards the end of the year, they wanted a driver on standby at the track because he could have gotten the news at any moment that his wife was going into labor and he'd have to get back home. So I believe it was the last 5 races, I actually traveled with the Germain Racing Group to each track, got to watch the races from the suite, which is, for me, great, especially during COVID, because there was no other way for me to attend races other than that. And you can always pick up and learn a little bit more being able to watch the race from a suite more so than on TV because you can look anywhere you want to or follow any particular car. So that was a good experience for me. And luckily for Ty, his baby ended up being born on a day where it didn't interfere with his racing schedule. So I never ended up getting into that race car. But it was pretty cool that they trusted me and wanted to have me be their backup guy. That was flattering.
Yeah, I bet. Mm-hmm. How do you feel like NASCAR as a sport did during the whole COVID experience, like from the beginning to the end?
I mean, they did a good job for sure. I mean, I think we were one of the first major sports back, and I think that's good. That happens to be good about our sport because we are individuals competing against each other, but we don't actually have to get close to each other physically, body-wise. We have this big car around us, so that's something that we've got going for us over a lot of the other sports is we could kind of keep our drivers separate from each other at the track and get into our cars just when we needed to right before the race. And, I mean, gosh, the races that I didn't hardly even see any of the other drivers. I saw them from afar on the grid before we raced, but on a normal race weekend back in the day, pre-COVID, we used to hang out and talk and I mean, it would just be a fun social weekend up until the race. You chat with all your friends, so things definitely looked a lot different this year, where you were there to do your job, and you got in the race car when you needed to, and that was about it. So it was a way different run of show at the track, but it was exactly what they needed to do for the CDC guidelines, and hey, it got our sport back earlier. It got the full season in with some of the double header weeks that they ran. We ran every race. I mean, I don't think they could have done a much better job of making sure that it all got in and all became a legitimate championship, as they set out to do at the beginning of the year before any of this happened. So I think it worked out well for the sport. I'm interested to see how things go next year in terms of guidelines, possibly relaxing or tightening, and how things change. But I certainly hope to see things get back to normal as quickly as possible, have the fans back at the track. A lot of people don't know on the more private side of the sport, for sponsorship, the restrictions of going to the track is definitely a bit taxing on sponsorship, because a lot of the business deals are kind of predicated on a company being able to bring their employees or their potential clients to the track. It's an experiential piece. It's about access. And of course, things are a little bit different at the moment with that. So it's put a strain on the business side of the sport. So we definitely want to see everything get back to normal as quickly as possible.
Definitely.
All right. So earlier today, Adam Stern put out an article referring to the fact that NASCAR is talking with the teams about their thoughts on moving the number to the quarter panel and possibly keeping it permanently when the next gen car comes out. Do you have any thoughts on it personally?
I didn't even see Adam's tweet today, so you're ahead of me for sure. But honestly, I don't have many thoughts one way or the other. I could argue both sides. I like the center door number, the classic NASCAR look. It's hard to beat that just because it's the way it's always been. It's historic. And NASCAR, more than really any other form of racing, the car numbers become iconic. Formula One, IndyCar, sports cars, it's more the driver name that's up front. And we keep the car number right there with the driver name becoming synonymous. So I kind of like that, but I can definitely see why opening up some more square footage on the side of the car for the sponsorship, I mean, that's valuable too. And we saw them do it actually for the All-Star race last year, and I thought a lot of the teams came up with some pretty cool, innovative paint schemes utilizing that new format for the paint scheme, and there's definitely a way to make it look really, really good. So whatever they do, I'm driving the car from the inside. I can't even see what it looks like. So whatever they want to do, whatever works for them, go for it.
Fair enough. Let's see. What are some of your favorite paint schemes that you've seen or you ran with?
Oh, that's a good question. I did like my paint scheme, this year a lot, and last year I thought RCR did some good paint schemes for me for the Hot Scream Spicy Ice Cream, and then this year was Ruta Bush Development and Construction. I thought they looked good, but honestly, RCR puts out some great paint schemes on everything. I think a lot of Austin's cars look badass each weekend. I think a lot of Tyler's cars look great. Honestly, I don't know if I have anything. I guess the only one from this year that sticks out off the top of my mind was, and maybe it sticks out because it was at Texas, which we were all stuck in Texas for 10 years, I think, for that rain delay. But Kyle Busch's car looked so good. It was a gray, a Skittles zombie car or something. I thought it looked really, really good.
That was cool. Yeah.
So, kind of a two-part question here, but have you done a fan meetup before when you were in the Truck Series or in the Xfinity Series?
I have. I've done some more structured events and autograph signings before, of course, but Jeff Gluck and Bob Pockris, I think it's the two of them together, they'll do, back in the day, they would do a tweet up, they would call it, every Sunday, with a whole bunch of fans, tell them where to meet them at what time, and sometimes they would invite some drivers out to that. So I did some tweet ups with Jeff. I think I did one at Martinsville, one somewhere else. And that's always fun to do. I mean, interacting with fans on the weekend of the race is always the most exciting part because just like any sport, I mean, you think basketball and football, they're the same way. Just the energy, the atmosphere at the track for the race really energizes the competitors. I mean, it's like the home field advantage. Like it may seem mental and crazy, but it really is true. So getting that excitement and that energy from the fans is always a great thing. And it's been weird racing with the stands empty, and just you're standing there for the national anthem and it finishes and it's just silent. It's like a ghost town. So it's definitely good to have fan interaction, and I'm looking forward to that finally getting back to normal here in the future.
So is it kind of a surreal feeling then to well, let me try and phrase this. I mean, it's got to feel a little weird having people that are like your fans, I suppose.
It is for sure. I mean, it's honestly, I don't think it ever gets normal signing autographs. I think it's always cool and crazy that people actually want me to sign something that they have. I'm sure all of us feel that way, but it's definitely flattering and it's part of what we do, and we love that side of it. So something I've always dreamed of. I'm sure a lot of people have is being able to walk out for like the Daytona 500 driver introductions or something with all those people. Like that would just be the coolest energy ever. And hopefully someday I can do that. I don't know. I saw that they announced it'll be limited for this year at the 500, so I'm not sure what that's going to look like exactly. But I'm sure down the road things will be back to normal, and maybe someday I'll get that opportunity to walk out for that race and see what that's like.
Yeah, I'm set.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got for you for right now. So, thanks for agreeing to come on the show. We hope you find a ride, and we hope to watch you out on the track this year.
Definitely.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Anytime.
Of course.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
I really thought you were gonna bring up you fucking love